Do you know someone who's broken their hip, or have you broken your hip before? Have you broken your hip before?
I've not.
Do you know someone who has?
Lots of people.
Okay. Falls prevention, that's what we're talking about today. I'm Dr. Paul Zalza.
I'm Dr. Brad Wien, and welcome to Talking with Docs.
We are going to go through scientific proven ways of preventing or reducing the risk of falling, okay?
Right, probably can't get it to zero, but we can reduce your risk.
Yeah, we're going to put 5 things you can do, 5 easy things you can do, all
Okay.
right?
Why-
And everyone can do this.
Why are we even talking about falls?
Because we're sounding the alarm. The number of hip fractures that are happening is alarming. That's why we're sounding the alarm, right? It's alarming. It's growing. I remember hearing a stat several years back that, I can't remember by what year, like 2030, 2035 or something, all our hospital beds are going to be filled with people who've broken their hips,
Oh, wow.
okay?
It certainly is a huge burden on society for
I
sure.
was on call last night. I fixed 1 hip fracture and 2 more came in.
Wow.
So I'm net -1.
Net
all
-1.
right? And there's also a broken wrist I had to deal with that fell in the hospital.
Okay.
Okay, so falls are a big deal. I bet everyone who's watching knows someone who broke their hip or broke their hip themselves.
Right.
And it's not only hip, you can break your wrist, you can break your shoulder, break your back,
Okay.
break your coccyx.
And so, your coccyx, like Napoleon Dynamite's grandma.
What are you doing here, Uncle Rico?
Grandma took a little spill at the sand dunes today. Broke her coccyx.
What? Since when did she go to the dunes?
Yeah, so there are easy things you can do that are scientifically proven to reduce your chance of falling.
Okay. And so, but why do falls matter? Like, why?
Falls matter because 30% of people over 65 will fall at least once a year.
Okay, so just get back up.
You could.
Okay.
But there are injuries associated with falls.
Right.
And common things we see are hip fractures. Those are the really bad ones that we see. There's also
Right.
wrist fractures, shoulder fractures, spine fractures, like I said.
So that in combination with osteoporosis or osteopenia that we've talked about recently,
Yes.
that increases your risk of having a fracture, and then that causes morbidity, or worst case, actually increases your risk of dying.
Right, and we're looking at the falls from the lens of the orthopedic surgeon,
Yes.
but from the lens of the emergency room doc, there's also head injuries that happen,
Sure.
which there is a higher chance of dying from, and I think a lot of elderly people do die from head injury secondary to a fall.
Another thing I read is that when you fall, you actually have increased fear of falling, and it really changes the way that you live your life. So you become less active and you become less conditioned, which ironically increases your risk of falling.
It's a vicious cycle, and I saw
Yeah.
someone in my fracture clinic, they'd had a hip fracture 6 weeks prior,
Yep.
which we treated surgically, and then since then, that person's fallen twice.
Right.
So
yes.
once you fall once and then you've had surgery on your hip or something and you're recovering, guess what? You're at increased risk of falls.
And I'd say the last thing that's hard to measure, but is the increased stress on not only the patient, but the patient's spouse or a patient's extended family, like the children, and the impact that it has on where you live. So often a fall is what is the impetus for transitioning from independent living
Yeah.
to less independent living,
Or
which is not
assisted
necessarily a
living.
bad thing.
Yeah.
It makes you safer and it provides a lot of security,
Yeah.
but it definitely is a kind
Yeah.
of a,
Okay, so that's all the bad news.
Yeah.
The good news is there's 5 things that you can do to minimize your chance of falling.
let's break it down.
All right, so number 1, there near you, there is likely a falls prevention program, which is basically a structured exercise program.
Okay.
Where you will meet a physical therapist or a physiotherapist, and they'll work with you, show you what exercise to do, what balance training to do.
Yep.
And that in itself, attending a falls prevention program will reduce your risk of falls.
And we have one here at our hospital.
Yeah, we do. And that exercise program will also help if you're living with obesity, because an elevated BMI increases your risk of falling
Okay.
and the severity of what happens when you fall.
Right, the consequences.
The consequences.
like either getting a fracture or not, or having a worse fracture or not.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
if you do have a fracture and you need surgical treatment,
Sure.
and your elevated BMI will keep you in the hospital longer.
Okay.
All right. So that's all tying in with a structured exercise program.
And yeah, so it's making you stronger, improving your mobility, and improving your balance. These are kind of 3 things. And more, we've learned that fitness is a lot about that. Mobility and balance is
Yeah.
a really key part that we've probably neglected a little bit.
Here's where your black belt in Tai Chi comes in handy.
Yes. Okay. That's number 1. So number 2 is home safety or home safety assessment. People are like, my home is safe.
Maybe not.
Maybe not, particularly with things like uneven floors, Throw rugs are notorious transition phases of your home. Cords, anything that pet toys, kid toys, grandkid toys, whatever, things that increase your risk of falling. So you can actually formally get an assessment. There are people that provide this service.
Occupational therapists is what they're called.
Likely at a fee. I don't know what the capacity is within our socialized healthcare system. They'll do that. I think if you're leaving the hospital, they'll do that. But I don't know about everybody else preventative-wise. But look around, and if you see something that you think, hey, that could increase my risk of falling, maybe consider modifying it or removing it from your home.
You know what I find? The curved staircase. We used to live in the house when years ago. We rented a place that had a curved staircase.
Okay, you don't
so
like
the
it.
stairs changed their depth.
Right.
Every stair is on an angle. So if you're walking towards the outside of the curve or towards the inside of the curve, the stair has a different depth.
Okay.
And that tripped people up. Just about everyone who ever visited us took a tumble down those, pulled a Chevy Chase down those stairs.
Okay, very interesting. And I'd say the other thing along those lines probably is sensible shoe wear.
Yeah, flip-flops are called flip-flops for a reason.
Flip-flop. But also shoes that you tie, you got to make sure
Yeah.
they're tied up. So you got to be careful of that. There's like a bunch of things with your shoes you got to be careful.
All right, so yeah, that's your home safety, and that includes ice on your driveway if you live in a place that gets snow like we do.
Okay.
I feel like a bit of a hypocrite talking about falls prevention. I probably fall once a year, especially walking the dog in the winter
Me too.
on the ice. Like you just fall.
When you're trying to pick up the poo and then
Yeah, not even. If the thing sees a squirrel and like, there you go.
Yeah.
So, home safety. Okay. Number 3, this
Okay.
one's a little more subtle. You might not think about it, but your medication profile. All right. So you are likely on 1 or more medications. Once you get up over 4 medications, there's a good chance that there's some interactions.
Do you know what percentage of people over 65 take 0 medications?
Let me know.
So there's one study that I looked at in preparation for this video, and it's like 1 in 7, like only 14% of people
my.
take no medications in the last
Wow.
year, according to this study.
That's incredible.
And you know what percentage take more than 5 in Canada? Like
Yeah.
2/3, 66% take 5 medications or more.
So there's a chance that some of those medications interact.
Right.
And even medications like sedatives,
Yep.
sleeping pills, blood pressure medications, they can all make you dizzy or lightheaded, especially when you get up quickly. So
Yeah.
those can increase your risk of fall. So check it out with your pharmacist or healthcare provider and see, look, which one of these medications put me at risk for fall? Are there interactions here? And is there medication I can maybe do without?
Yes, discontinue some, alter.
Yeah. So we made a video about that
Yeah.
a few years ago about just reducing the number of meds you take because
Yeah, deprescribing.
Deprescribing. They get added on, and years later, you're like, "Why are you on that?"
Yeah.
When I take a history and I ask them, "Why are you on that?" They're like, "I don't even know."
Yeah, like even like 30% take like more than 15, like I think, which
Yeah,
is
it's a lot.
It's nuts.
You don't have room for lunch.
You don't have room for lunch. And sedatives, the one class of benzodiazepines in general, should probably almost not be prescribed over 65 because the risk of falls is so great.
Right.
Like we really have to work hard to try to limit them or eliminate them.
Okay, that's your medications.
Okay, number 4, it's funny because these are factors that we talked about for reducing risk of dementia as well,
Right.
but optimizing both your vision and your hearing. So for me, the vision makes sense. Obviously, if you can't see, you're gonna trip, higher chance of falling. That makes sense to me. So we all should get our vision checked regularly throughout our lives actually, but particularly as we get older, it's really, really critical. Have your prescription adjusted if necessary. Maybe have surgery if you have severe cataracts, that kind of stuff. But for the hearing loss made a little less sense to me, like if you can't hear that.
Brad, you're approaching a cliff. Oh, he
So-
didn't hear me.
So fair, but you can't hear the extension cord, you can't hear the rug underneath you, but apparently this also likely relates to balance and some other factors.
Possibly.
But yeah.
Okay, get
Yeah.
them checked.
Get your vision and hearing, it's just good for your general health.
And number 5
Okay?
is assistive devices.
Okay, like
All
don't
right.
trip on them?
No, use them. Now, I've had, and you've had this too, many patients, they come in with their son or daughter, and I'm like, are you using a walker or cane? And then they're like, they don't want to, they won't use it,
Yeah.
they don't, because you don't want to look old or whatever.
Right.
Let's get the stigma away from assistive device. Okay, you can look pretty cool with a cane, right? Look at the penguin.
Yeah. Mr. B. Do you remember the episode where George Costanza was faking an injury and he had the cane and they're like, weren't you using it on your other side before? And he was like back and forth.
No, I don't remember that
Oh,
one.
it's really.
But yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with assistive devices. They can help you get from A to B without falling if you need it. If you've
Right.
been told by your physical therapist or occupational therapist that, look, you need to use a cane
Or a walker.
or a walker. Walkers are cool. They got baskets in the front. You can put stuff in it, flip it around, you
And
can
to be
sit
honest,
in it.
even for hip and ear replacements, people are like, oh, when can I get off my work? I'm like, listen, A walker helps you to be stable. The only way you can kind of wreck what we did is fall. So we don't want you to fall post-op. We don't want you to fall in general because of the consequences. So get a walker or a cane and have them properly fitted. Because an ill-fitting cane or walker can probably do as much damage as a proper one. Same with crutches, actually.
Crutches, often misfitted.
Right, so have them properly fitted.
Yeah, like you use a grocery cart in the grocery store. Walker's just like a grocery cart you take everywhere.
There you go.
Think of it that way.
That way.
Shopping. I'm constantly shopping.
Okay, so now you got an approach. You got your top 5 things, ways to modify and improve your life to reduce your risk of falls. Because we don't want you to fall. We don't want you to get an injury. We don't want you to suffer the consequences of those injuries.
Structured exercise, home safety, check your medications, check your vision and hearing, and don't be embarrassed to use an assistive device.
Now you know. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel.
And remember, you are in charge of your own health, and now you're in charge of not falling.
We'll see you next time.